Spider-Man is probably the most popular superhero on the planet, and he has been consistently dominating the media industry since 2002, when Sam Raimi revealed Spider-Man to the entire world. However, I'm not here to talk about the blockbuster movies. I'm here to talk about the smaller scale Spider-Man animated TV shows and ranking them from worst to best. Let's begin. Okay, I'm probably going to get some hate for this, but Spider-Man 2017 is possibly the worst superhero show I've ever seen. I would rather watch Superhero Squad over this show. It doesn't even feel like a Spider-Man show or a superhero show even. He barely swings around. All the villains he fights are Dollarama store versions of classic villains like Doc Ock and Hobgoblin. And the art styles they chose for these characters are even worse. Like, why does Doc Ock look younger than Peter? It makes no sense. The whole premise of the show is also really bad. Why is there a big futuristic school out in the middle of New York with kids who are smarter than Tony Stark enrolled? Anyway, I guess the action and fighting scenes are okay, and voice acting is kinda good. I mean, Peter sounds like a 12-year-old, but I guess that's the norm nowadays. It just sucks because this show had so much potential being made in 2017 with Spider-Man being introduced into the MCU. It's not a bad show, it's just so average for the time that it hurts. I would want to give the show a 0 out of 10 if I could, but because I can't, I'm going to give it a 1 out of 10. And compared to the other shows on the list, it doesn't even compare. But moving on. Going from the most recent show to the first show, Spider-Man 1967. Now this show was probably a pretty good show back in the day, but rewatching a couple episodes for this video, this show did not age that well. The animation is very slow and choppy, and the character designs are pretty bad. I mean, look at these. Now, the fight scenes and storylines are also pretty boring, and the voice acting is not good at all. Everyone sounds very old and kind of upset to listen to all the time. However, can I also say that this show is probably the animated show with the most amount of memes associated with it? Look at all of these. However, I can't hate on this show that much though, as it was the first show to take the leap leading to all the other shows on the list. So I'm going to have to give it a fair, honest rating of a 3 out of 10. But moving on. Spiderman Unlimited is a show that I think gets way too much hate than it deserves. This show is kind of fun and cool. I mean, I love the animation style, and the Spider-Man Unlimited suit is also kind of neat. I mean, I get that a lot of people dislike the show for its weird storyline, and I can get that. The basic premise is that John Jameson gets trapped on a weird mirror alien planet thing, then Spider-Man tries to go to save him and also gets caught on the planet. But the planet is infested with animal-human hybrids, blah 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 blah. Kinda lose me there. The animal designs kind of look like a ripoff of Thundercats, but still distinct enough that you know it's not. But I mean, this show was not bad for what they were able to work with, since Sony didn't allow them to use any of Spider-Man's main characters. This show definitely has many flaws, but it's not a bad show. It's kind of interesting and also kind of funny at the same time. I mean, I guess I'm giving the show a lot of bias since this was one of my childhood shows for me, but I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be. I'm gonna have to give this show a 6 out of 10, and that's still really good. But moving on. Spider-Man the New Animated Series. Oh brother, here we go. This show is okay, right? I mean, the new 3D animation they used for this show isn't bad. It actually looks kind of good with Spider-Man's suit. However, the actual civilian look? I don't know. The animation does allow for some cool poses for Spider-Man. And can I just say, this might be the fastest and best moving Spider-Man we've ever seen. He flies through the screen. However, the problem with the show is the villains. Half of the show's villains are just made up ones like this guy. And also, this show might be even worse than Spider-Man 2017 for the renditions of some of the villains like Lizard and Electro. I also think that it was a bad idea for MTV to pick up a Spider-Man show, but I mean, it's cool, I guess. However, this Spider-Man show did not live up to its expectation. It's still a fun, enjoyable watch. So I'm going to give it a grade of a 6.5 out of 10.
Spider-Man and his amazing friends, Iceman and Firestar.
Next up is Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was a show to help accompany the 1980 Spider-Man show. This show was focused on Spider-Man, Firestar, and Iceman, and this show is one of the most memorable Marvel shows of all time. Everyone remembers the classic intro to the show, as well as that this is the first appearance of Firestar as she was made for the show, and also the first time we saw Wolverine in a cartoon, even though he sounds kind of Australian. This show is packed with fun little things for every Marvel fan to enjoy, and this show is fun to watch. Rewatching it for this video, I thought that it wouldn't age as well just like the 1960 Spider-Man show, but I'm glad I was wrong. I pleasantly enjoyed rewatching the show. I'm going to have to give it a rating of an 8 out of 10, and this is one of my favorite shows of all time. Next on the list is Ultimate Spider-Man. Ultimate Spider-Man was great. I thoroughly enjoyed watching this show when it came out. I mean, I get a lot of people dislike this show as it was a follow-up to Spectacular Spider-Man due to the Sony and Disney deal, but honestly, I think it's pretty good. I mean, I don't understand the whole idea of making Spider-Man a leader of a team, but it's cool, I guess. This show isn't aiming to beat Spectacular Spider-Man. Ultimate Spider-Man is a fun Spider-Man comedy with some seriousness sprinkled in, and the show is pretty fun. A lot of the Avengers showed up, such as Captain America, Iron Man, and Hulk, and some of the episodes really made sense, like the Contest of Champions, the Spider-Verse episodes. This show was altogether a masterpiece, and Ultimate Spider-Man is one of the greatest Spider-Man shows of all time. So I'm going to have to give it a rating of 8.5 out of 10. But next up, we have the big boys. Now listen, these next two shows are amazing and spectacular. Of course, I'm talking about the Spectacular Spider-Man and Spider-Man the Animated TV show. These shows are not only regarded as the best Spider-Man shows of all time, but also as some of the best superhero shows of all time, ranked above countless amounts of other animated superhero shows. And the runner-up is Spider-Man the Animated Series is the show that defined Spider-Man for years to come. The Spider-Man fans of the 90s adored this show, and with good reason. Spider-Man the Animated Series was the best show for its time. The stories followed specific comic book storylines, and every episode felt properly written and cared for. This show was the bomb. This show had great villains that were well developed and had good costume designs, and I mean, this show was the first real show to bring up the Spider-Verse, and they may have done it better than Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, the Spider-Verse episode was literally the best episode I watched back in the day. Spider-Man the Animated Series is easily a top 5 superhero show cartoon of all time, and you can also argue that this is the best representation of Spider-Man we have ever had. So, for that, I'm going to be giving Spider-Man the Animated Series a 9 out of 10. However, I think that there's one show that stands above the others, and that show is Spectacular Spider-Man. Spectacular Spider-Man was the best representation of Spider-Man we have ever seen. Throughout movies, games, and shows, Spectacular Spider-Man was the best and will probably still be for years to come. The only flaw I could find with the show is that it was cut off too early. It had everything a Spider-Man project needed: high school drama,
we know all your secrets.
Intense action sequences,
Because of course we were.
incredibly developed villains, a great cast of voice actors, animation, and of course comedy.
But spiders can't be choosers.
I rewatched this entire show a couple months back, looking to see if there was one episode that wasn't great or on par with the rest, and I can say I was wrong. After seeing all the episodes, every episode felt like it was in the right place. Spectacular Spider-Man is the best representation of Spider-Man and the best Spider-Man animated TV show of all time, and I'm going to be giving it a rating of 10 out of 10. Spider-Man TV shows are some of the greatest for my time, and I think the future for them is bright. With the release of Spider-Man Freshman Year coming out, I think Spider-Man Animated TV could make a comeback bigger and better than ever. So for now, peace out and Excelsior, and don't forget to subscribe.